Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Lights Camera Discussion podcast. This time it's a special one, a three-parter. Of course, this is the first part today. My name is Mass903. As always, I'm joined by my co-hosts. Put these two gentlemen into a room, and there will be blood. Collie and Todd. Guys, how are we doing?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Todd, are you okay?
Yeah, excellent. Very excited about this. How are we doing, mate? Right?
Good. Yeah, I told you guys that intro would be shit compared to the other ones. I tried. Okay.
And that's all we can ask.
It's almost as if you put in more effort when it's your director of choice, whereas when it's mine and Todd, you don't care.
Am I that transparent? Jesus.
Yes.
Well, today we are dealing with Collie's choice, Mr. Paul Thomas Anderson. So the films we will be covering in this episode, in this part, is Hard 8, Boogie Nights, and Magnolia. So, Collie, you're going to be taking the reins with this one a little bit. How about you give us a bit of an insight into Mr. Paul Thomas Anderson?
So Paul Thomas Anderson, often described as one of the preeminent writer-directors of his generation. His accolades include a BAFTA Award and nominations for 11 Academy Awards, 3 Golden Globes, and a Grammy. Anderson's films are often psychological dramas, characterized by depictions of desperate characters and explorations of dysfunctional families, alienation, loneliness, and redemption, alongside a bold visual style that uses constantly moving camera shots and long takes.
Damn. I'm excited.
Definitely wrote all that myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like it. Okay, well, Collie, do you want to give us a bit of an insight into the first film that we'll be discussing today then?
Yeah, so 1996's Hard 8. A veteran gambler, Sydney, takes a young, down-on-his-luck man named John under his wing in Reno, Nevada. 2 years later, John is living a successful, albeit unsophisticated life with a cocktail waitress named Clementine, who also works as a prostitute. A hostage situation arises, forcing Sydney to confront his past and protect his protege.
Wow. Okay, well, first thoughts on this film, Collie. What was your thoughts?
So, out of all the PTA films, this was a first watch for me. I'd seen all the other ones before. I thought you can tell that it's an early film in somebody's, directorography or film career. But as we'll discuss and as we'll see throughout all of his films, there's a lot of stuff that he's already developed at this point. And it just, I'll mention his age quite a lot, especially in the first couple of films, but he was 26 when this was released. Like, he's in his, early to mid 20s when he's writing this and he's directing this. Some stellar performances, like a kind of straightforward theme, kind of straightforward plot, but yeah, some good performances, some good kind of director, flair and stuff there. And you can kind of tell that he's going to go on to bigger and better things after this.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, same for me. A rewatch, a first watch for me. I'd never heard it before. I had zero expectations going into it. But it was a really solid film. I did enjoy a lot of it. There was, things, as you say, you could tell it was like a first film, a sort of fledgling, a sort of starting off director, given kind of the reins the first time. So there was bits that maybe weren't as strong. But I thought overall it was a good film, and it had one of my favorite performances out of all of his filmography. So yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. Todd?
Yeah, I had a great time with it. It's one of those that I hadn't even heard of, so it was obviously a first watch. Like you say, performances were fantastic, and to work with such massive names on your debut is and to get the performances out of them, because obviously that's a risk, isn't it, when you're a young director? Are they going to listen to me? Are they interested in what I've got to say? Clearly he had a vision, and they work with it. It's one of those I'll watch again a number of times. I think it could easily fit into a rotation, because it's an easy watch, but it's a brilliant watch at the same time. I really enjoyed it.
Good stuff. Let's kind of go into characters. So I kind of alluded to one of my favorite performances across Paul Thomas Anderson films. Philip Baker Hall is one of these guys that you've seen his face in plenty of things, or I'd seen his face in a few things, but I'd never really properly watched him or like kind of delved into his filmography and sort of his performances. Him as Sydney's a revelation. I absolutely loved him. I thought it was an incredible performance from the start, from molding this young down his luck kind of gentleman into almost like a youthful or a younger version of himself, like a protege kind of on the up in the gambling scene. Yeah, I thought his performance was absolutely incredible, and I'm we'll talk about him in obviously other films, but I could see from there I was like, this guy's amazing. Like he was so good. Colin, what were your thoughts on Philip Baker Hall?
So my main experience of him prior to this is the kind of head guy at the studio in Bruce Almighty. That's probably one of the main things that I can remember him from, and he's in the corridor with Bruce and is like dropping his sandwich and all sorts of nonsense. So I thought he was a lot more comedic, and you can see aspects of like comedy and banter between the two of them. But his performance is unbelievable. The bit that stands out to me is the phone call at the end when he's telling him he loves him and stuff like that. We'll touch on John C. Reilly in a minute, but like that's like proper acting. You know, that's like really, really heartfelt. It's like when you watch this, you're just like, oh, it's going to be like, you know, they're going to go to Vegas, win some money, and that's about it. But like as the story develops, and then we'll talk about this in quite a lot of PTA films, but there's a moment that the film just goes like really dark. Like everything's going along swimmingly, like they're dating and stuff like that, and then this hostage situation happens, and it just goes from like not a fluffy film, but just a kind of fine, like, you know, moving along film, and then just a switch like that, and it's all just like all serious from then on. And Baker Hall, when he comes into that room, or he knocks on the door at first and stuff like that, he knows that something's wrong, but he's just like, just let me in, and then he just comes in and he's just like, what the fuck is happening? But he reminds me of the guy Winston Wolfe in the Pulp Fiction. Do you know when he comes in, he's just like, this is the plan, this is what we have to do and stuff like that. And the way that he speaks so softly and kindly to John C. Reilly, but also his relationship with Gwyneth Paltrow's Clementine really comes through there as well, when he's like, my darling Clementine. And there's always like when they first like meet and stuff, and there's that banter between when she's calling him the captain and stuff at the table, and it's like, oh, can you remember my name? Like that just comes across as, oh, maybe she's just, you know, a waitress, and she's just, you know, that's the banter and stuff. But you can tell that there's this fatherly relationship and bond that he's developed with her. You know, obviously we find out later on why he's got one with John C. Reilly for the fact that he killed his dad. But even with her, he's just got this kind of caring, like, you know, factor to him, and that just kind of sits under the surface but comes out a few times in the film. I think it's an amazing performance. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and really like blew me away in what I thought was just going to be like, oh yeah, it's an early film of his, you know, I'll just watch it and get over and done with. But his performance especially made me keep wanting to rewatch this, because at first I could have been like, oh, this is a one and done, and maybe the first half I was like, oh yeah, I don't really need to take too many notes on this. But a couple of rewatches subsequently, I just enjoyed it more and more each time.
It just before we go on to Todd, it's interesting you say about the feeling like the Winston Wolfe from Pulp Fiction, because I actually even wrote as it's almost like a Tarantino scene with the three characters arguing how to deal with the hostage. So yeah, absolutely spot on. I clocked that as well. Todd, thoughts on Mr. Baker Hall?
Yeah, like I wrote down, like from the beginning, he didn't have any. It didn't feel like he had an ulterior motive. Like at no point did I think, oh, he's a bit dodgy. Do you know what I mean? He's a bit of a sort of a weird one, and I think it's because he has that sort of care inside to him. Like you see that constantly. He's always pushing that. Yeah, the care, and like you say, in that hostage situation. The other thing that I do love about him though is that he's got principles, and again, it's not explicitly said. You know, he's done some horrific shit. Like you can tell, like he's just got that about him. Before we know he's killed John C. Reilly's dad, and before we see what happens with him and Jimmy, like you know he's got that about him. But when John says, "Promise me you'll help me," promise me you'll help me, he's like, just let me in. He didn't promise at any point to help. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't have to stick with that. He can just walk away from the situation, but he doesn't want to. And I thought Philip Baker Hall did an amazing job with it. Incredible. And like you say, that phone call at the end of those eyes that were basically begging John C. Reilly to say it back. Like you could just feel that. You could feel that desperation. Yeah, I thought he did a phenomenal job. And like you say, isn't somebody who I've seen in like lots of lead roles. So it was really cool to see him in this, and for not Wes Anderson's because we talked about him before. I know,
Don't.
God, it's happened. Sorry, Paul Thomas Anderson to get such a phenomenal performance out of him so early on in his career. It was really impressive.
Before kind of going on to the sort of other three mainer characters, I wanted to kind of just touch on another performance that kind of blew me away when it happened. That's Philip Seymour Hoffman when he joins in. It's almost like a cameo as the young craps player. Unbelievable, like scene-stealing performance within all of 5 minutes that he was on the screen. His cockiness, his brashness, but also Sydney almost being drawn towards him as well at points. I loved that performance, and it's one that stuck with me, after when I'm thinking about it. Collie, thoughts on his little cameo?
It was great, and obviously it's really early in his career, and then obviously him and PTA like connect through Hard Eight, and then he's in a lot of his films subsequently. I actually had to, on the back of that, I was like, what is a Hard Eight? Because a bit of background about this in general, I was going to leave to like the trivia at the end, but basically he wanted to call the film Sydney, and that was like a PTA did. But the studio were like, nah, we don't want it to be called Sydney. And they were, at one moment they were like, oh, people might think it's about an Australian film because of Sydney. I was like, I get that. So they ended up on Hard Eight. So I noted down what a Hard Eight is. In the dice game Craps, a Hard Eight refers to rolling an 8 by landing both dice on a 4. So 4 plus 4 on each dice. This is distinct from an Easy 8, which is any other combination of dice that adds up to 8. 6 plus 2, 5 plus 3. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Philip Seymour Hoffman rolls a 5 and a 3, I think, which is why Sydney doesn't win money when he says $2,000 on a Hard Eight. So I was just like, not being a gambler and never having played craps in my life. Like I wanted to know what the Hard Eight kind of was from, so I did note that down. But yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman just kind of shows his flair that we'll subsequently discuss in other films. But yeah, just funny, and he's just like. They're in loads of films, those kind of scenes when there's like that brash guy at the table and he's saying this and this and that. But exactly, great point by you in that fact that like Sydney felt drawn to him because he was like, oh, let's give this a go. There was no like viciousness between them. It was just banter. It was just banter that probably happens at those tables all the time. And the fact that like, Philip Baker Hall loses $2,000, but he just like shrugs and walks away. Yeah, great little scene, and just a bit of a not he doesn't steal the film, but it's just great to see him that early in his career, and he's so young looking as well.
Yep. Todd, anything to add on Philip Seymour Hoffman?
No, when you say it, it's not film stealing, but it's damn close. Like it's such a draw, like for. But again, it adds to Philip Baker Hall's like that sort of. I use this word like the stoicism. The kind of the quiet, and he's like, he's not biting back. He bites back with the big bet. That's what, yeah, I thought, like you say, it's lovely to see him at such a young age doing exactly the same. And I think, because we'll talk about him a lot, Philip Seymour Hoffman, the difference in roles. The guy could do anything, like and you didn't hate him. He was a wanker in this film, but you didn't hate him. It was more like you just wanted more of it. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to the other three kind of supporting kind of cast: John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, and of course Samuel L. Jackson as well. Collie, what are your thoughts on anything stood out with those guys?
So it's weird. Like we're going to talk about him a fair bit in this episode and or in these episodes. That John C. Reilly probably for like us is Step Brothers and all that kind of stuff, but. In the start of his career, maybe through the first 10 years, it was a lot of like dramatic roles, and yeah, there's comedic elements to them. But he was in this Boogie Nights. He was in Gangs of New York. He was in a lot of like dramatic films, and he's still got that in him. But he seems to have kind of just went with comedy, not because it's easier per se, but he's just very, very good at that as well. So it was good to see him in this kind of. Young role, early role in his career. The opening scene with him in Sydney in the cafe, when he's just like, he's down on his luck and he's not really wanting to talk to Sydney because he meets him outside first, does he? And then they go in and start chatting more. And he's like, I'm going to sit in the back of the car and no funny business and all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of, he shows him the initial was it getting the card and then cashing in your chips and stuff like that, and you can just tell that he's completely enthralled with this guy. As soon as he like lets his guard down a little bit from, are you gonna make me do stuff that I don't want to do? He's like immediately listening to him, and then it skips ahead to 2 years, and he's not like arrogant after the fact, the 2 year time skip, but I think he does, as an actor, show that he's developed within that 2 years. He's got this kind of affinity to gambling, and he knows what he's doing and stuff like that. And then obviously he flies a bit too close to the sun with the whole Jimmy situation that we'll get into. But yeah, an absolutely stellar performance. Are you wanting me to talk about a few of the other performances, or are we wanting to do the rounds?
Just go for it. Just crack on, yeah.
So I thought Gwyneth Paltrow was pretty shit. Like, she didn't really bring much to it. I'm not a big fan of hers anyway. It's just interesting that this is like the year after Seven. So like she's obviously got a bit of name about herself, but she's in this film. I guess that's good though. That like she's in a up and coming director's film, but I just don't think she's very good. In the few bits that she's in, she's just a bit like not over dramatic or whatever, but I just didn't really buy much of it. At first though, I think the first interaction with Sydney's pretty good, like the kind of flirty nature of her talk to Sydney and what's my name and stuff like I spoke about before. But then just as you start getting into the scene of her in Sydney's room, kind of insinuating, like, oh, what did she say again? She's like, "Are you gonna fuck me?" And he's like, "Oh, why did you ask, or why did you ask that?" That kind of situation, I just didn't really buy it. Like, maybe I'm being a bit harsh on her because I don't particularly like her in general, but it was an okay performance. I wouldn't say she was like terrible, but it was definitely the weakest of the bigger performances. And then Samuel L. Jackson, I think, is just class at this point. And at this point, he's done back to back. He's done like Pulp Fiction, Die Hard 3. Is it Time to Kill? It's the same year as this. Yeah, he's in PTA's first ever film in like a relatively minor role, which is interesting. But no, I thought he was great. Kind of, you can tell that there's a bit of grit in the relationship between him and Sydney at first, and then I love how Philip Baker Hall's just like, yeah, I don't like him when John asks him, "Oh, do you not like him?" or something, he's like, "No," and then he's like, "Oh, okay." I think he just wasn't expecting him to be so honest about it. But yeah, Samuel L. Jackson was great, but all supporting performances were okay for Gwyneth, but the other ones were stellar. I thought they were great. It was a great like small cast, but everybody came to bring their best.
Good stuff. Yeah, I totally agree with Gwyneth Paltrow. I think I'm the same as you. Like, I'm not really a fan of hers. Like, I'm not going out and buying her candles and all that sort of stuff. But like, she just seemed like she was moaning and crying for a lot of the film, but there wasn't much substance to the moaning and the crying, which it didn't really move me or anything. So yeah, I didn't particularly like her performance at all. John C. Reilly's a weird one because like I feel like I should have enjoyed his performance more. I liked his character as being the sort of like down his luck kind of taken under the wing of Sydney. But at times it just felt like a weird relationship that didn't feel quite. I don't know. It almost felt, and it probably should have as well, but felt completely unbalanced in that like Philip Baker Hall as Sydney was like streaks ahead of John C. Reilly, both as a gambler, but I also felt in the acting side of things as well. I don't know if it, for me, because Philip Baker Hall was stealing the film for me, it just made John C. Reilly's performances not feel as equal. There were some things I did like I preferred him after a time jump, where it was a bit more cocky and stuff. But before, it just felt a bit sad sacky kind of thing for me. But I mean that's just me. Samuel L. Jackson, I really enjoyed his performance. I thought him as being this kind of, he's almost like the antithesis of John. Like, he's kind of a scheming kind of guy, with a sort of mean streak behind him, and yeah, just kind of a bit slimy, which I thought he played it very well, and especially the sort of blackmailing scene and stuff as well. I thought he was phenomenal with that. But yeah, it was just a weird one for me, especially the John C. Reilly performance. Todd, thoughts on the three?
Yeah, so John C. Riley, I was really surprised by, just in terms of his vulnerability and stuff, and there was moments that were a bit not silly, but like comedic. Comedic is the word, but like over the top comedic. I thought the matchbook story and the little cutaway where it goes off in his trousers and he's
Yeah.
like,
So
when he look,
I had third degree burns.
it was this close to my dick. Like those sorts of things are like the John C. Riley that I know as such. Like you say, like
Hmm.
when we look at him as like Step Brothers and Talladega Nights and stuff. But I loved his vulnerability. I love the sort of the constant looks to Sydney as if to be like, is this okay? Is what I'm doing okay? And even in the hostage situation where he's shitting himself and then like he jumps that the guy wakes up and he jumps him and he hits him. The first thing he does is he looks at Sydney again. And I just thought those little like quirks that he brought to the character were really good because it's like this guy's, saved him essentially. And cares so much and read that in the performance. Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow, it's almost like she's one end of the scale. She's either devastated, absolutely world ending crying, or screaming and shouting, and there's no kind of like balance to her character. It is how I saw it. Um, yeah, it didn't take away from anything for me. It wasn't sort of like well, this is taking me out. This is shit. But like, it wasn't great. And Samuel Jackson just playing that character that I think he's well known for, that he's got the cockiness about him. Like you say, again, from the word go, you know there's something wrong with him. You know that he's a slime ball. And like you say, I agree him being like, the complete opposite to John. I think also uh, him and Sydney being in that car together, and Sydney would never be the type of bloke to blackmail somebody. If he had an issue, he'd go and say it. You get that impression where Jimmy just wants what's best for Jimmy and nobody else, giving them the gun, all that kind of thing. I thought it was great. And like you said, there's those little smiles about him and like the kind of the cockiness. I thought as a cast, like I said, he got some fantastic performances out of them. Thought they were brilliant.
Okay, doke. Okay, so this is kind of a new thing we're going to try at the end of each film. So we're going to go through our favorite quote, scene, and then our MVP of the film as well. So, Collie, seeing as it's your episode, start us off with your favorite quote.
So it was John at the start. He says, "I'll fuck you up if you fuck with me, okay? I know 3 kinds of karate: jiu-jitsu, aikido, and regular karate."
Brilliant. Mine is Philip Seymour Hoffman as the young craps player. So, okay, I'm going to light a cigarette now, old timer. See, the thing is, I like you. I'm going to light a cigarette and let you have the time to place your bet before I finish lighting the cigarette. And when I finish lighting, I'm going to just roll and fuck you. Oh, Todd?
Mine was the Philip Baker Hall one. I want you to see that my reasons for doing this are not selfish, only this. I'd hope that you would do the same for me. I thought it was just like, it was really, really good and encompasses who he is as a character. Yeah, I thought it was excellent.
Me and Collier like do the comedy side of things, and Todd's going deep with it.
Don't worry.
Yeah, don't they? There's
Don't
plenty of
worry.
opportunities for both.
I was going to say later on, some of mine are very silly. It's fine.
Collie, favorite scene?
The opening scene with Sydney and John when they first meet, I thought that was really good. It kind of sets you up for the rest of the film really well.
Nice. For me, it was like any of the long tracking scenes to the casino. Absolutely spot on. Like, those were incredible. Todd?
Yeah, mine was the building up in the casino, like Sydney showing him the ropes. I thought like you can see the influences that he's wearing on his sleeve type thing, but I also think again it's that Paul Thomas Anderson like that vision was brilliant.
It's good when he tells him off for getting the drink. He's like,
Yeah.
"That's a $250 cocktail or whatever." I thought that was good.
Yeah.
And finally, Collie MVP?
Philip Baker Hall for me.
Yeah,
I think like it just
Yeah.
not maybe like a massively known actor at that point. He'd done stuff, but I think this kind of showed that he could be not necessarily always a leading man, but yeah, he was really, really good in this.
Mm-hmm. Don't need to add anything to that because you're absolutely spot on. And Todd, you said it's a unanimous MVP, is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he gets the award for that. Okay, let's rate it then. Collie.
I give it a 4.
Cool. Todd?
Yeah, I gave it a 4 as well.
3.5 for me. Okay, let us move on to the next film. Collie.
So 1997's Boogie Nights. In the San Fernando Valley in 1977, teenage busboy Eddie Adams gets discovered by porn director Jack Horner, who transforms him into adult film sensation Dirk Diggler. Brought into a supportive circle of friends, including fellow actors Amber Waves, Roller Girl, and Reed Rothschild, amongst others, Dirk fulfills all his ambitions, but a toxic combination of drugs and ego threatens to undo his and his giant cock's hard work.
Brilliant. First thoughts, Collie.
I love this film. Like, I've watched it so many times over the last, I don't know how many years, 20 years or whatever. Yeah, love it. Brilliant. So many good performances. Really kind of, brought Paul Thomas Anderson to the forefront of, the kind of up and coming exciting directors. And I touched on it with Hardy, but the fact that he released this when he was 27 is mental.
Absolutely. Yeah, first watch for me. I'd always heard of it and like maybe seen some scenes here or there. So it was first actual proper watch. It's kind of a messy film, but it almost lends itself to that, which I appreciate, and the kind of ambition of it as well is something that I really appreciate. You're right, the performances, some of them are just absolutely stellar. Some of them are incredibly funny, and yeah, obviously a lot more comedy, but also loads of darkness as well. So yeah, it had pretty much everything in it, to be fair. Todd?
Yeah, so it's a rewatch for me, but it's not one that I've watched a lot of. And the only reason I watched this the first time a while ago was there was a song at the Oscars. Jack Black, Will Ferrell, and John C. Reilly sang a clown at the Oscars or a comedian at the Oscars. And John C. Reilly said, "It's the reason I can do Talladega and Boogie Nights." And I was like, what is this Boogie Nights that he's talking like? And it's one that I will rewatch and rewatch. It's performances all over the place, great script, and again a cast for days. And we talk, and like you say, a young director getting these massive actors at different stages in their career, absolutely brilliant.
Good stuff. Yeah, when I first saw the cast, I was like, oh Jesus, we're gonna be talking about this for like 4 hours just purely on the cast.
Fine by me.
So there is a load of folk to get through, so we'll kind of maybe keep it a bit shorter with these ones, but the main player is obviously Mark Wahlberg as Dirk Diggler, and then you've obviously got a cast like Julianne Moore, Burt Reynolds, Louis Guzman, John C. Reilly, of course, Heather Graham, Don Cheadle, William H. Macy, little cameo from Nina Hartley, who some people may know, some people may not. No, I don't either. But yeah, an absolutely stacked cast. But
call anyone it right now.
Yeah,
Googling it right now.
Go in incognito mode. Yeah, Collie, standouts or anything from the cast?
I mean, Mark Wahlberg was really, really good in this. Like, amazing. Couple of scenes stand out is just his first like introduction to Jack when he comes to the kitchen and he's like, it's 5 or 10. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I'll show you it for 5 or I'll jerk off for 10. And one of the podcasts I listened to on this, they were like, that's a shit like pricing scheme. Like, surely 5 for a show is fine, but surely you'd want to charge like 4 times the price for jerking off. He's already done it twice in the night, he says. It's like, obviously you would just pay the 10. You know what I mean? It's only twice as much. If it was more expensive, then I'd maybe reconsider. But that's like your first introduction to him. But there's so many scenes throughout this that I think like he really, really toes the line of being like hysterical and over the top. But I think he reins it in perfectly. One of the ones is when his mum, when he stays out late and shags Heather Graham. And then comes home and his mum's just sitting in the chair and where the fuck are you? Who do you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, you're not the boss of me. You're not the boss of me. Like that kind of thing. And then that is kind of mirrored later on when he's like out of his head, like out of his face on drugs and stuff. And he's fighting with Jack. And he's like, I'm the star. It's my big dick. And I say when we roll and all that kind of stuff. Like he just like is really, really hysterical in them. But I don't think he kind of strays into like parody of it, or he's like not whiny, or he is whiny, but he's not like, you don't roll your eyes at it. You perfectly believe that he's like either getting bullied by his mum and he's got a bad relationship with her, or he's coked out his mind later on. I think he brings both aspects to that. And then there's one final kind of shot that I'll talk about is when he's in Alfred Molina's house and Jesse's Girl's playing, and there's just that shot on him for ages, and he's just sitting there like completely zoned out. And then all of a sudden he just like comes out of it and he's like, we need to go. Like I thought that was just an amazing like shot from PTA and decision from PTA, but I think he just like goes glassy eyed and everyone's like arguing around him and stuff, but he just like properly locks in for that. I think he was excellent. And I'm really kind of surprised that he wasn't nominated for Best Actor for this. He wasn't. There was Burt Reynolds and Julianne Moore were both nominated acting wise, but he wasn't. And then when you look at like who, like Dustin Hoffman was nominated for Wag the Dog, Peter Fonda for Yuli's Gold, Robert Duvall for The Apostle, Matt Damon for Good Will Hunting, and Jack Nicholson for As Good as It Gets, who actually wins it. Fair enough, but a couple of those other ones, I think Mark Wahlberg was more than deserving to get nominated. I think he was great.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he was the standout for me. You're absolutely spot on with that tone line between the kind of hysterical and stuff. Like he's. I think he's absolutely brilliant. The way he progresses as well from kind of naive, well, I say progress because he's still kind of naive the whole time, but like from naive busboy to then a naive star, getting his hand in.
He was in his mid-20s, just talking about ages and stuff. He was 25 when he was making this, 24, 25.
That's crazy. And then obviously see where he ends up and stuff as well. It's just, it's really well done from Mark Wahlberg. Todd?
Yeah, my main thing for it is how young he acts. Like he is a little lad. He's so young and like, well, he's not a little lad. But he plays young so effectively, and like that wide-eyed sort of excitement and how quickly that fades is brilliant. I think he had some of the like say the big moments. I think that his mum trashing his room for me was like a really big moment. The other one, and it's a little bit of cinematography in terms of, decisions made, but is right at the very end when he ends up somewhat fortuitously, I suppose, outside of Jack's house when his car breaks down, and he's talking about how much he needs help, and like when you talk about Gwyneth Paltrow and that sort of like balance, you get the balance from him quite often. So when those big moments happen, it works really well and it's really effective. And so it was devastating. And like, again, it's that decision, that long shot. You don't see Burt Reynolds. There was a part of me when I first watched it being like, has he just walked into some random guy's house and he's just that fucking like off his nut adrenaline wise that, it leaves you guessing. I thought it was fantastic. And there is jokes about Mark Wahlberg and his performances, but this shows he can, with the right script or whatever.
Like us last episode for Flight Rescue.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Right script, right director. Look at what he can do.
Absolutely. Okay, Collie, anyone else?
Just one quick thing on Mark Wahlberg. I think the final scene, which is one that a lot of people remember about this film, but it's like obviously he gets the dick out at the end, which is like the kind of shock moment of it that you finally get to see it. But he delivers this whole monologue that he's a way to deliver in the film, like into the mirror. And then he just goes, I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I'm a big, bright, shining star. That's right. And then that's like, the end of the film. I think that was great. Like how he delivers this whole like serious monologue, even though he's a way to do it in a porno film or whatever. I just find it quite paradoxical, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like it would be one word to describe it. But yeah, I thought he was great.
Definitely. Okay, Collie, any others in the cast you want to talk about? Obviously.
Burt Reynolds probably, like, we'll talk about Julianne Moore, maybe more for Magnolia or whatever, but I thought she was really, really good in this and did get nominated for supporting actress. I thought she was solid. The kind of one bit maybe that stood out for me was the kind of the scene where they're talking about the custody of her child and they're asking, have you ever been arrested or whatever, what was the charge and stuff, and then it just cuts to her like sobbing against the wall. I thought that was really good, and I think her and Heather Graham's standout scene for me was when they're fucking coked off their tits, literally, and it's like, am I your mum? Am I your mum? Say that I'm your mum and stuff like that. Like, it is a bit of a memeable scene, I guess. It's funny, but I think it's a really good portrayal of people on cocaine, is that they're just like rambling, and like Julianne Moore's just like floating about the room, like giggling and stuff like that. I thought that was quite a convincing performance. But yeah, Burt Reynolds as Jack Horner, really, really interesting performance. He's got a lot of heart, I feel like, for a character. Like, he's a porn director, but I think he does care about, especially Eddie. Like, I think he really does like take him under his wing and nurture him and stuff. And I think it does hurt him when Eddie is going off the rails and Eddie comes out and demands that he wants to film. So I think that fight that they have is a massive like breaking point for the relationship. And I think Burt Reynolds did a great job at portraying that. So a bit of background, him and PTA clashed a lot on this film, and I think he was like, I'm old Hollywood, who the fuck's this young kid trying to tell me what to do? And apparently the day before they shot that scene, Jack falling out, PTA and him had a massive falling out, and kind of a few folk behind the scenes were thinking that he'd deliberately tried to wind up Burt Reynolds the day before that, so he would channel some of that anger at PTA through his performance into Eddie. And if that is the case, I think it was a correct decision by Anderson to do that, because I think Burt Reynolds is great in this. I think he's fantastic. He's somewhat kind of not badmouthed it, but he didn't do much press for this, which some people are like, oh, it's cost him the supporting actor. I don't know if it cost him the supporting actor, because Robin Williams won it for Good Will Hunting, which I think is like an all-time great like win for the Oscar, but he could have had maybe more of a chance if he'd actually campaigned for it. But I think like he fired his agent after it and all that kind of stuff. I don't think he was happy with the film after the fact.
Burt Reynolds is a weird one for me. Like I've never like. For me, he always seems to do the same thing in a lot of his performances. Even this one, there was obviously that moments of heart and stuff as well, but it just felt like Burt Reynolds. I don't know if it's because him as an actor is maybe more iconic as being Burt Reynolds, so like it feels like he does his sort of like the main thing, same thing sort of in most of his films, but it definitely felt like him to me. But certainly that scene with when they had the falling out, that was a really big moment for that, and yeah, you could tell it was like a sort of like paternal relationship, but yeah, it's just Burt Reynolds for me. I don't know. I can't really see past that, to be perfectly honest. Todd, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you, actually. You've sort of like, you've switched that. I only know Burt Reynolds from sort of new Burt Reynolds, let's say, like, and it does feel like he's almost playing himself. I do think the moment in the limo where they film in that new the new series with Roller Girl in the back of the limo and stuff, like for me that was a big moment where kind of I got that performance from him, and believed it. Not just the attacking bit, the whole thing where he's kind of that build and build and build of like, you need to make it more sexy, move for the camera so the camera can see. I thought that was really effective. Julianne Moore, sorry, just to go back to Julianne Moore, like is by far and away one of my favorite actresses, and I don't think she gets like, obviously she's well renowned, but I don't think she gets the credit that she deserves. And like in this, that Are You My Mom scene was amazing. I know, like you say, it's daft and it's over the top, but she's so good and and like, yes, these two people are absolutely ripped off the head, but they're getting they're both getting what they want and need, even though they're not fully there. You can feel that sort of need that Roller Girl wants that figure, and Julianne Moore's character just wants something like to hold on to. So she takes Eddie under her wing, or wants to, and then she wants to take Roller Girl, and I think you really felt that. I thought.
Yeah, because there's a couple of times that she mentions that she misses Dirk, and then she mentions that she misses her actual son, and the lines are very blurred between the two of them, and kind of. There's a scene at one point where, is it the scene where it's the party and they're phoning, like trying to, I can't remember, is it Maggie, which is her real name or whatever, but they're asking if it's a Maggie there, and it's her son obviously calling the party, but she's through in the other room doing coke, staring at Dirk in the pool, and it's like, that's kind of a visual representation of her choosing one son over the other. And you see in a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson films that the people kind of get what they deserve. So I feel like, I find it harsh to say, but as a mother, she's not a good mother, or she wasn't a good mother to her real son and stuff like that. So for the fact that like that custody hearing or whatever it is doesn't go her way, I think like it's shown that that's how it should have went, because she isn't in the right mindset to be a good mother and stuff. And the kind of reconciliation between Jack and Eddie, and then one of the next scenes after that is like Eddie lying down, her like head's in her lap, and she's like soothing him and stuff. She's satisfied in that regard that she's got a son back, not necessarily her actual son, but there is that kind of full circle moment that she gets her son back.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like for such a wild film, it's almost more set in the real world than it is set in like a film world, isn't it? And the actions have consequences.
It's a theme throughout his films that actions have consequences, but also family is a massive theme throughout. You see that in Hard Eight with the kind of father-son thing of Philip Baker Hall and John C. Reilly. You see it here that they are all a big family. And yeah, there's too many roles to kind of talk through and stuff like that. But John C. Reilly as Reed, I thought was really funny. Like their first interaction, when he's like, "What is it?" I can't remember the name of the gym, but he's like, "Oh, do you go to so and so gym?" And before Mark Wahlberg even answers, he's just like, "Oh no, I'm there every day. I would have seen you." And then it's like, "How much do you squat?" And he's like, "Oh, we'll say at the same time," and neither of them speak. And then all through the later part of the film, when they're recording that song together and stuff like that. One quick thing is, do you you recognize who the old guy in that scene is that's holding the masters of the tapes?
Yeah,
it's Robert Downey Jr.'s dad.
Robert Downey Sr.
Was bizarre. Yeah, Robert Downey Sr., which is pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
But just one other role that I want to talk about, and we've spoken about him already. Philip Seymour Hoffman in this as Scotty is hilarious. He's dressed as like a 14-year-old kid, and the scene when he like professes his love to Eddie and tries to kiss him, and then you could tell that on the paper it would have just said Scotty says I'm an idiot. But the fact that Hoffman gets in the car, he's like, "I'm an idiot, I'm a fucking idiot," and he like sobs for like a minute or whatever. It's so good. It's so like tragic but funny. He's like, "I'm a fucking idiot," and he's just like sobbing in his car. It's so good. And again, like he doesn't probably have much on the page from PTA. He's just like, Scotty just hangs around and stuff. But he just takes it and runs with it, And the scene, the first sex scene between Amber and Eddie. And he's holding the boom mic, and obviously it's the shot around the room of everyone seeing his dick for the first time, and he's like, "Oh," he's like hesitating and stuff like that, and you're like, that's so weird, but funny and just quirky. I thought he was brilliant, and William H. Macy was great in it as well. Heather Graham, Don Cheadle, like everyone put in really, really stellar performances from what they were given, and we probably won't have time to talk about it, but there was a lot of back and forth between PTA and the studio with this about being too long. They wanted it to be an Eddie and Jack story, but PTA was like, but it's a family story, and every family member needs to have their kind of moment per se. But yeah, just excellent, top to bottom. Like even people that were just in there for a couple of Alfred Molina, we won't really talk about as well, but he's mental in this, like so good.
Absolutely.
And to think he was like Doc Ock like 6-7 years after this is bizarre.
Todd, anything else you want to add cast wise?
No, just I'm with you on Alfred Molina. Like to be in the film for 10 minutes or something at the end and to have such an impact. Don Cheadle I loved, and that moment in the diner where the bullets just go off and you're waiting for the worst. She's pregnant, everything's going well, like you're waiting for the worst. And I thought he was brilliant. William H. Macy, he's just a sad sack, bless him. And like it was what is it where he says it wrong, and he's like, and my wife's over there with
an ass in her cock,
with an ass in her cock
on
the driveway. Like bless him, it was just I loved him. I loved him in it because there was something going to happen that could not have carried on. That she just like went, "Fuck, is it Bill? Yeah, fuck off, Bill."
Little Bill, yeah. But what was funny, so he recorded it and he said ass in her cock by accident, and PTA was like, "Oh, you said this wrong." He's like, "Okay," so they shot it again and he got whatever the line was correct, and then they shot it again and he got it wrong, and they must have went back and forth a few times, and then William H. Macy didn't know until he actually seen the film that PTA left the scene of him saying it wrong in. Obviously it's like iconic now and it's hilarious, but at the time he was like, "Oh fuck's sake, like he's left in a line that makes me look like a bad actor or a stupid actor," but it's just because he's so hysterical. And fucking Ricky Jay's like, "Yeah, but I'm talking about the shooting of a..." He's like, "Do you think I've got fucking time? My wife's down there with an ass in her cock."
Brilliant.
And I just want one more. Thomas Jane as Todd Parker, I thought was really good. Like, see the scene, the scene where I was saying about Eddie like zoning out, and then him and Alfred Molina's character and John C. Reilly are all talking, and it's just on Thomas Jane as Todd on the sofa. He's like, we're not leaving yet. And then they're all like, turn around. And he's like, in the goddamn safe, in the goddamn floor, in the fucking, they're in the goddamn blah blah. It's so fucking good, man. He's just like, yeah, I'm not fucking leaving. Then everyone just gets shot and stuff like that. Yeah, great scene.
Yep. Okay. Quote. Favorite quote, Collie.
So I've got two to cheat a little bit just because I love this film so much. But the main one I include this one is because it's Philip Baker Hall. But he's like, I like simple pleasures like butter in my ass and lollipops in my mouth. That's just me. That's just something that I enjoy. Call me crazy. Call me a pervert. And it's funny. The Colonel's in the background of that scene. Like when he's talking about it, he laughs. Like the actor like laughed. So PTA had to like blur him out, and you can still see him giggling away. But he like blurred out the background during that because he kept breaking. And the other one that I've kind of touched on was when Eddie and Jack are fighting. It's like, you're not the boss of me, Jack. You're not the king of Dirk. I'm the boss of me. I'm the king of me. I'm Dirk Diggler. I'm the star. It's my big dick, and I say when we roll. I thought that was just amazing.
Mine's a bit more lowbrow. It's from the Brock Landers Angels Live in My Town. So Dirk, you still hungry? Jesse Vincent starving, and he unzips his pants. Then feast on that.
That's a good one. That's a good
one. Todd.
So I wrote two down, and I knew somebody else would have I like butter in my ass, so I like.
That's so funny.
But it was
call me a pervert.
It was the argument between Jack and Eddie, and he goes, "I'm not filming you in this state." He says, "State of California. I know where I am, Jack."
That's good. One of the other ones it kind of reminded me of just the silliness of it, but it's when Todd arrives for the first time at the party and him and John C. Reilly are talking. He's like, oh, that's Michelle. I'll introduce her. And he's like, I'll introduce her to my lap. It's so
funny. Oh, God. Right, favorite scene, Collie.
The pool party, the first pool party for me. It's kind of weird. Like some of the scenes in this are so long that it's like a sequence rather than a scene, you'd probably say. But the shot, like in and out with the pool, with the music kicking in, then my wife has an ass in her cock, that stuff. But the standout for me is when the Colonel arrives and Jack's like, "Come over here, Eddie," and it's like Jack says, "You got a big cock. May I see it?" And he just glances down. He's like, "Thank you, Eddie." It's such a long take, and then like Eddie obviously walks away, and the scene's like 10 seconds longer of just the Colonel's face, and he's just like, "Oh my God, what have I just seen?" kind of thing. I thought that was good.
For me, it was William H. Macy just having enough, like the way that the camera follows him in to shoot his wife
New Year's party,
banging.
The New Year's party.
Like I just thought like it was so great the way it just kept with William H. Macy like the whole time, even as everyone's like kind of shit themselves.
What's interesting about that scene is he walks out, he puts his champagne glass on top of the car, unlocks the car, takes out the gun, locks the car behind him, leaves the champagne glass and just walks in and kills them both and kills himself. It's mental.
Yep.
That's what I was talking about in Hard 8, that there's that scene that just like the film's super dark after that for a while. Like it becomes super serious and dark. You're like, this is film's like, it's all about like porn and shagging, but that's when there's consequences, you know?
Yep, definitely.
Sorry, Todd, what's your favorite scene?
Todd?
The hot tub with where he's talking about the sign and the like.
Oh yeah.
Dirk Diggler, like and it's like it's so impressive that the neon explodes, and then he shows you the Dirk Diggler sign. I've just like it just did.
Yeah, and Jack's like, you've been delivered from heaven to service us, or I can't remember the word for word what he says, but Jack's just like, yep, sounds good to me. That's an amazing name.
Yeah,
and it is a belter, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, finally MVP. Collie.
It's Paul Thomas Anderson for me. I think like this properly announced him as, I know what I'm doing. I think like he battled with the studio quite a lot on this, but he won the battle. I think he got to keep it the way he wanted to, and I think subsequently in the last 30 years or whatever since it came out, 28 years since it came out, it's proven that it was a kind of a good opportunity from him to push back on that, and he's kind of had maybe not necessarily the final cut on all his films since then, but it kind of announced him as I'm the kind of, him and Tarantino have got like a rivalry between them, but he's like, this is what I'm doing compared to what Quentin's doing, and they're both different and great in their own way.
Todd, your MVP?
Yeah, I went with Paul Thomas Anderson as well. Like mainly just because how do you wrangle this much? Like you say, it's not a 2-person story. How would you get this much happening? And it could have been shit. Like somebody could have written this and absolutely fucked it, and
Nancy thinks it's shit.
he did a phenomenal job. Massey.
My MVP was Dirk's penis.
What's funny is like a bit of background on that is so it's based or like there was a guy John Holmes, which was like a massive porn star, and he had like a 13-inch dick, but he was like 6'4". So originally they made it 13 inches, but it's like a sixth of Mark Wahlberg's height because he's like 5'8" or something like that. So it looked ridiculous. So I think they made it like 7 or 8, and it's like perspective wise, it looks like obviously enormous. But when they originally did the 13-inch, it was like down to his knee or something like that. And they were just like, people will think that that's like not possible. Fake. So they had to scale it to him because he's shorter than John Holmes was.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Okay, scoring, Collie.
That's a 5 for me. Always has been, always will be.
It's a 4 for me. A lot of these films, in retrospect, I've been quite harsh on them, but it's a 4 for me. Todd?
It's a 5 for me.
Good stuff. You all right, Collie?
You say you're being harsh. I mean, it's the same as Sicario, so, there we go.
Yeah, exactly. Not as good as Man Without a Face, though. Okay, moving on. Collie, what's the next film or the final film in this episode as well that we're going to talk about?
1999's Magnolia. Magnolia centers on the interconnectedness of various individuals, such as dying television producer Earl Partridge, Earl's long-lost son and a misogynistic self-help guru Frank T.J. Mackey, game show host Jimmy Gator and his estranged drug-addicted daughter Claudia, to name a few, all of whom are grappling with themes of regret, redemption, and the search for love and meaning.
Good stuff. So, yeah, Collie, first thoughts.
Rewatch for me, it's one of those ones that we kind of touched on this with like Damien Chazelle a little bit. Ari Aster, is it the one that does The Beau's Afraid?
Yeah.
Aster? Yeah, so like the third film for a director, on some of the directors we've covered, they disappear up their own bum, I believe is the term that we've used a few times, certainly with Beau's Afraid. And for me, like, I can understand why people would think that with PTA for this. But again, for me personally, I think he lands the plane. It's just, he's got 1,000,001 ideas. He's not even 30 yet. And he's just fucking chucked everything that was in his head against the wall. And for me, the majority of it sticks. I think there's some amazing, career-defining performances here. And I know I just said it with Boogie Nights. It kind of, announces himself onto the movie scene. But I think, if anything, Magnolia was the one that was just like, I can do kind of crazy interconnected films, and then I can do like mental, interconnected films. And Magnolia is this. It's like an absolute fever dream. And yeah, I adore it.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's a first watch for me. It's a very ambitious film, and it feels like a very ambitious film. Like, there's a lot of stuff in it. There's a lot of things thrown at the wall. And it's very, very long. There's a lot of it that does stick the landing for me, but there's some of it that just doesn't quite. I think he's even said himself that he would cut out like at least 20 minutes of it or something. I'm sure I read somewhere that he did think it was a bit long himself, and it feels that. But much like Hard Eight, it's got one of my favorite performances in all of his films, and I'm sure you guys know who I'm going to talk about. But yeah, its highs are super high, but there is some lows there as well. Todd?
Yeah, so first watch for me, and I'll be honest, I went into this sort of apprehensive with it being 3 hours and with the talk of like, what the fuck is it about? And I was like, oh, gonna go into this, like you say, third film, 3 and a bit hours long. And I loved it. Like, I've watched it twice in 2 days and could happily watch it again now. For the bits that don't stick the landing, or for the bits that aren't as phenomenal as the others, like the rest of it pulls it. And I just think, again, performances, how do you fit this much in to a film is very impressive. And I'm with you that there is a performance in this film that took me back, but I think it'll be the same performance. But the performance in this film that took me back so far, it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just start talking about it? Because I'm assuming it's going to be the same guy. Tom Cruise.
You can kick us off. Yeah. Please kick us off.
Tom Cruise as Frank T.J. Mackey. Like, that for me it's one of the best probably one of the best performances I've ever seen. Really, like, it's unbelievable from start to finish. His start off as a cocky kind of like self-help guy, with the charisma to command a whole auditorium of people trying to make their lives better, to almost flirting with a journalist, but there's like a kind of undercurrent of her being a bit invasive of his life and his story, to then obviously like the absolute pinnacle is the next his father's deathbed, his estranged father's deathbed, and his outpouring of emotion from sadness to anger. There's obviously regret as well, but then also it's such a mishmash of so many different emotions, that it is just incredible. Even when he's walking in the house and he's like, "Don't let the dogs near me" and stuff. Like, there's a load of.
Does he say, "Get it? I'll drop kick the dogs"?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely like a top notch. As I say, it's one of the most incredible performances I've seen, and of course, Tom Cruise is known as Mission Impossible, known as like a kind of blockbuster action star. But this shows, like, see when he is given when he gives his all to performance, like, it's absolutely wonderful. He's one of the best to ever do it in my eyes. But yeah, I thought he was just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Todd?
Yeah, I'm not sold on Tom Cruise quite a lot of the time. Like, it took me a while to watch all of the Mission Impossible films, and he's a brilliant action star. We've talked about this before. He's one of the most bankable stars ever. But I think his arc and the way that he is, like, the tone of the film follows him. So, like, when I sat down, obviously as a first watch, and he's, what is it, respect the cop, Tim the gun. Like, I was like, oh, this is what we're in here. This is like, okay, we're into like a very over the top sort of style comedy type thing. But for him to go from that to like the interview, when he's like panting at the interviewer and stuff, and
so
then
when he first does it, he does like a little backwards roll, forward flip kind of thing when he's like getting in and out of his trousers and stuff.
when he's still
mental,
around
man.
his ankles, yeah. But yeah, that moment of him by his dad's deathbed was ridiculous, like breathtakingly good, and is up there with one of, like, as in just straight up acting. I'm not talking about the film in general, but like, is one of my favorite Tom Cruise performances of all time, and I think that's a big part of why I love this film, is because it, like, I was like, fucking hell, he is one performance. He is another performance from people that you maybe didn't expect it from. Yeah, it was fantastic. He was fantastic.
Collie?
Yeah, you've said it all. Really, he was nominated for the Oscar for this. Lost out to Michael Caine for The Cider House Rules, of all things. He was nominated up against Michael Clark Duncan for Green Mile, which, you know, is a very, very good performance. But I'd still, and Jude Law, talented Mr. Ripley, very good as well. Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense, not so much. But of all of those, like, for me, it's a travesty that he didn't win an Oscar here. And have either of you seen Eyes Wide Shut?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so obviously we'll cover Kubrick in a future episode, but he released this the same year, and a couple of years before he did Jerry Maguire Mission Impossible, which is kind of more like Tom Cruise's like wheelhouse. But to do but like Eyes Wide Shut and this in the same year is like very, very different for him. Interview with the Vampire was earlier in the 90s, so he was going through this stage of like taking risks with his career, and then kind of post 2000 he's not really taking many risks, which is fine. But I think like he is just more about the blockbuster and more about the, you know, making money and being successful in that regard, rather than maybe acting chops. But for the fact that he just went fucking full hog in this is excellent. And it's this, we'll cover obviously the father scene at the end, but one of the standout shots for me, again, a PTA thing, kind of similar to the Mark Wahlberg one in Boogie Nights. It's when he holds it on Tom Cruise's face during the interview for ages. Mm-hmm. And then he just says at the end, he's like, "I'm quietly judging you." And it's like so, like, you know, ominous, but like heartfelt as well. Cause that's like after she's like, you know, pestered him, being like, "You actually didn't go to college. About your mum, like your real mum's dead, all that. Why do you lie? Blah, blah, blah." And he's just like deadpan, like staring into the camera, but obviously staring at the interview. Unbelievable performance. The over the top bits of it, hilarious and funny. but the quiet kind of, brooding moments like that to the kind of, the full on crying at the end. He gives every aspect of a performance that you'd maybe see a really good actor give 1 out of the 3 there. But I think like him and PTA must have just had this trust in each other that we're just gonna, give it our all, and they did, and he was unbelievable in it. Unbelievable.
Yep, absolutely. So again, it's a massive cast, isn't it? There's a load of people in this film. Maybe we should touch on Julianne Moore. We said we didn't really speak too much about her in Boogie Nights, or touched on her. That's a bit. So let's talk about Julianne Moore in Magnolia and what we thought about her performance, Collie.
I think for me, like I love Julianne Moore as well, but for this, it's like her most over the top, funniest performance. The bit in the pharmacy was like, "Don't call me lady, shame on you," and stuff like that. And then like not long after, she just gives the same like kind of high shrill performance, I feel, in quite a lot of the scenes in this, and it is effective because she's obviously on all this medication, she's going through it with her husband, she's feeling this regret that she actually does love him and stuff like that. But the scene when she's talking to the lawyer, it's just like, I mean, she's like, "I suck so many men's cocks" and stuff like that. It makes me laugh sometimes, which it probably shouldn't. That's not kind of the vibe that they're going for. But it's just really good in this, but it's very, very, very over the top.
I think it didn't land for me as much because it is so over the top. I understand why it would land for some other folk. It felt like a lot. There was moments to it which are really good. I especially think the pharmacy scene for me was a high point of it. But much
also just like to pick a bit of that, like, why is a pharmacist asking all these questions and judging? Like, shut the fuck up and just give me my meds.
Yeah.
Like, a doctor signed off on it. Fuck off. So and like, I think she was right to be annoyed by it, to be honest. But just like, "Don't call me lady, shame on you." And she's leaving. It's so funny.
It just kind of, for me, it kind of felt a bit more like Gwyneth Paltrow in Hard Eight, in that it was like, it was a big performance, and it didn't quite hit for me, but it's absolutely fine. I like
the scene between her and Philip Seymour Hoffman, though, I thought was really, really good. More so even on him, like when he turns away and he's just like, the camera's right on him and he's crying. We'll obviously cover him in a minute, but there was good scenes though that weren't over the top, but it was just the few standout scenes in it for me. It's just fucking mental in
it. Todd?
Yeah, I thought the bits, like you say, the quieter bit. So when she's talking to the lawyer before she starts talking about how many dicks she sucked, when she's saying about like, "I don't want it, I love him." Like, I thought that was really effective. Like you say, the bit with Philip Seymour Hoffman as well, was really effective. But I think I'm ever so slightly biased as well, because I just think she's phenomenal. Like, she's one of those where I'll kind of go to bat for, I suppose. But she was, there were moments where it was, but were really big, really, really big. But yeah, I thought she was really good. Wasn't like the standout performance of the film for us, but was definitely, one to watch.
Collie kind of touched on Philip Seymour Hoffman here. Again, obviously a constant in PTA's kind of films. Thoughts on him as the like nurse guy?
I thought he was good. I thought because it was a lot more focused on him than you probably would have thought in a supporting, but it's an ensemble cast, so I think he does get his fair shake at it. There's the bit that I only paid attention to this because one of the podcasts I listened to on Magnolia was when Tom Cruise and his dad are, or he's speaking to his dad at the end. Philip Seymour Hoffman's just in the background, like sobbing, and he wasn't like prompted to do that. He just felt that that's how his character would react and stuff like that. So it just shows his kind of emotional intelligence as an actor. I thought he was really good. Like, just it kind of becomes like a kind of staple of him is this, kind of stoic, like you were saying, Todd, before, and that kind of character and stuff, but he shows emotion, but it's not like a hysterical Julianne Moore emotion. It's just this sort of like, tears rolling down his face kind of thing. I thought he was brilliant.
Yep. I totally agree. I think his performance was kind of almost the opposite of Julianne Moore, and it was like a more muted kind of introspective performance, which I really appreciated, and that was the main thing. The thing about the fact that it wasn't a script for him to cry. Well, Tom Cruise is doing his thing, but it was just such a powerful moment that he, sort of did that, and that's what the great actors do. And having a relationship that he does with PTA, it allows him to kind of explore those sort of bits and pieces that maybe others wouldn't, or with not having maybe as close a relationship with a director, you may not know what they want or what they will enjoy and stuff. So I think it's really important that he's there to do so. Todd, thoughts on Philip Seymour Hoffman?
He comes across as being like a sort of a director's dream, that he just takes stuff and runs with it, but isn't like, he knows when to steal a scene and he knows when not to. I just think you get that. I wrote down about like how you just feel that he cares about this person. It's not a job for him, it's not just a sort of like a 9 to 5 or clock in, and he really cares for Earl. Possibly more, obviously for reasons, but than his own son does, or that his own wife does and stuff. And I thought that was really effective. I just think he when we talk about people being chameleons, and it's because you don't recognize them in different roles and stuff. So like you could argue that Daniel Day-Lewis, like it doesn't feel real that the same guy who's playing Daniel Plainview is playing the same guy in Phantom Thread, where Philip Seymour Hoffman has the same face every single time, but every single character is so different. And he does a phenomenal job for me. And like you say, again, not the biggest of roles, but was brilliant.
Yeah. We're getting on a bit of time, but just to obviously kind of quickly touch on, there's a few more kind of standouts or big characters. We've got John C. Reilly, of course, as the cop, is kind of starting to date people, and then we have, of course, William H. Macy as the quiz kid. Again, Philip Barker Hall as the sort of like host guy and stuff as well, with maybe a secret past. What were your thoughts on them? Was there anything that stood out? Anyone else that kind of stood out for yourself, Collie? Or
they were all solid performances, and if you're rushing us for time, I don't think we need to cover the performances anymore. I think we need to discuss probably the most divisive moment of this film. Yeah. Why does it rain frogs? Did either of you have feelings when that happened? What was your thoughts when that initially happened? Did you know that was going to happen?
I didn't know it was going to happen. I then went. I wasn't sure what it was kind of showing. I didn't know if something like biblical or whatever. I went back and saw that it happened to Philip Seymour Hoffman on a holiday in Italy. It's actually like a phenomenon that actually can happen. But I'm still kind of unsure as to what the whole sort of thing was behind it, to be honest. Todd?
I didn't know it was going to happen. And was a little bit sort of like, oh, it's metaphorical, like as in it doesn't really happen very much. This sort of like, what's otherworldly, supernatural, not supernatural, but you know what I mean, like not of this world. And then because I got excited about the fact I saw an 82 on the roof made out of wire, and I was like, that's a really specific. During the prologue, when the guy jumps off the roof, there's an 82, and then there's 8 and 2 all over the place. So, and that's obviously about the frogs being rained down. So again, I just saw it as a full reference of like, I didn't think it was a real ending as such. Thought it was really interesting, and it didn't take me. I know. Again, afterwards, I read, and there were a lot of people whinge about it and think it's a bit over the top and takes them out of it. It was just more questions to be asked. And I looked at it as well as like the coincidence side of things. Like when we talked about Nope and that sort of a bad miracle. Like I looked at it as that sort of thing as well. Like because there's so many coincidences happen in this film. That's what it's about. Is that another weird coincidence that just happens to be?
Yeah, it reminded me of Take Shelter as well. Jeff Nichols' Take Shelter at the end with the tsunami and stuff like that. So I did take a couple of notes on it that on this. So the film contains numerous background references to a line of scripture in Exodus 8:2, in which the prophet Moses, seeking to liberate the Israelite people from slavery in Egypt, tells the Egyptian pharaoh, if you refuse to let them go, I will plague your country with frogs. So further on that, I've seen a good comment on Reddit, of all places. Says, a common thread in the stories of almost all the characters in Magnolia is that their lives were drastically changed by something that happened in the past, which is encapsulated in the phrase, we may be through with the past, but the past is not through with us, which is obviously a spoken line in the film as a part of the narrative. All of these people are trying to deal with their own traumas, specific events that altered them forever. Even though they are shattered by their own past experiences, they try to go on with their lives in whatever way they can. But it's impossible to go through such events, to live through such things, without being completely transformed by them. It's impossible to ignore the depth of an event like that. It's impossible to go through a traumatic experience unscathed, just as it's impossible to ignore that it's raining frogs, but that is how many people react to such traumatic situations. So it's just kind of those ones being like, if you've been through something traumatic, it's not as traumatic as the next thing, or it's not as outlandish as the next thing. And a very outlandish thing is that it's raining frogs. So it is very divisive. But when you do a little bit more digging, and I'm not always being like, well, you know, you should only understand the film if you go and like read on it after the fact. But the film's been out for 25 years. Folk have analysed it however they want to and stuff. I think it's a really interesting choice. That is, like Todd says, very divisive, and a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't get it, or it ruins the film for them. And yeah, I just find that to be a bit narrow-minded personally. But
I definitely think it's, again, talking like what I said at the start, it's ambitious, like, and it's an ambitious choice to make as well, to, you know, give us such a weird thing to analyze. And I didn't even notice the 8s and 2s and stuff like that as well. So again, the ambition to have the references throughout that that lead to that is a really interesting point. And yeah, I find with a lot of PTA's films, and obviously we'll talk about this kind of later stuff as well, is like I always leave them and then think about them a lot after as well. Like it's not just like a kind of watch it and like a one and done sort of thing. It like kind of stays in my mind and stuff. And this was one of them for loads of reasons. Okay, let's go on to quotes. Favorite quote, Collie?
So I've got Earl Partridge's one here, the kind of estranged father of TJ Mackey. It's just kind of his little monologue when he says, "I loved her so, and she knew what I did. She knew all the fucking stupid things I'd done. But the love was stronger than anything you can think of. The goddamn regret, the goddamn regret. Oh, and I'll die. Now I'll die. And I'll tell you what, the biggest regret of my life, I let my love go." I thought that little monologue was very poignant.
I mean, for me, it's the when he's just screaming, "Don't go away, you fucking asshole! Don't go away!" And like the way that is portrayed adds so much to it. But yeah, it's incredible. Todd?
I went with the John C. Reilly one. Sometimes people need a little help. Sometimes people need to be forgiven, and sometimes they need to go to jail. I thought it was he's such a simple character, and again, it's just who he was.
His character and that kind of arc's one of the ones that a lot of people are like, why do we need this in the film? But I think it just adds another kind of thread to the story. Like if you're going to make a 3-hour film, then like you might as well. Like it's when he loses his gun and stuff's quite funny. Also,
Favorite scene, Collie?
So I've got two to cheat as always, but one of them's the one with TJ Mackey and his dad, where they don't go away, you fucking asshole. But I'll just go pretty basic and I'll just say the introduction of TJ Mackey when he says respect the cock and tame the cunt. I think that's just unbelievable. One of my favourite ever character introductions in a film, I would say.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's the breakdown of dad's deathbed for me. It's just, I've spoke about it. It's incredible. Todd?
See, mine's Tom Cruise, but it's it's kind of cheating. It's the interviews, because obviously it's split across a couple of different scenes. But I love the shift in the interviews. Although I will say as well, I had the prologue down for quite a while because I loved that cold open. I thought that was phenomenal.
And I think it's Ricky Jay that narrates that. Him that plays my wife's got an ass in her cock, the other guy in that scene. I'm sure it's him that narrates that, and he's like one of those guys that you've seen in loads of. He's actually he's passed away now, but he's a very successful magician. He's quite a big name. He's one of the henchmen in Tomorrow Never Dies, the James Bond film and stuff. Like you'll have seen him in plenty. I'm sure it's him that narrates that. When I was looking up, the prologue's great. The whole story about like the guy getting shot in his stomach and he would have survived jumping off the roof because the net was there, but his mum shot him through the window. It's bizarre. That's one of those ones that kind of comes full circle to the frogs. It's like, you know, sometimes it's like what can happen will happen, kind of that Murphy's Law aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a character called Murphy in this film.
I don't think so.
Okay. MVPs, Collie?
Yeah, Tom Cruise for me.
Yeah, Tom Cruise for me, Todd.
Yeah, Tom Cruise.
Another unanimous
Yeah.
MVP. Wow. Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Okay, so let's go into rating. So Magnolia, Collie.
5-star for me.
5 stars. It was 4 stars for me. And Todd?
It was a 4.5 on a first watch, and I bumped it up to the 5 on the rewatch.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, well, that is us finished part 1 of our Paul Thomas Anderson filmography. Of course, remember to watch the next part, which will be the middle part, because we're going to do a part 3 as well, where we'll be covering some more films. But yes, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and follow, and let us know what you thought. Let us know if you know what the frogs mean and if you liked Tom Cruise. But guys, thank you much for listening, and catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.
Later.